Alright guys, in this video what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the toy assembly project here in Engineering 1. And it's a multi-step process, so there's going to be a few videos in this series that'll take you through it. And this is really just an introduction to Inventor, even though we're going to be doing an assembly file. We're kind of going in a reverse order. Usually you create parts first, but I already have the parts made, so we're just going to assemble things. And essentially, just to show you what you're going to be creating, it is this file right here. So you're going to be creating something that looks like this, that spins around and rotates, and just like you see. So we're going to animate this. These individual parts, though, I already have created. So we're just going to assemble them all together, and you guys are going to create a video and then show me that for course credit. All right. So let's get rolling with that. And the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go into the Engineering Schoology page, which I believe I already have that up. So once you're in the Engineering Schoology page, you're going to go down to the toy assembly project and open up that folder. And then there's going to be two folders. The one is assembly videos, which this video that I'm speaking in will eventually be in there with the corresponding continuation videos, as well as assembly parts. So you're going to open up assembly parts, and this is probably going to be one of the trickiest things that you have to do. All the parts for this project are located in here. All right. Now, before we start saving these parts into one folder that we're going to create, we need to create that particular folder. So what I'd like you to do is create a folder within your engineering folder. Create a toy assembly folder, and I have an example here to show you. So go to your H drive, go to your engineering folder, and you're going to create a folder that's labeled toy assembly parts. And then within that, we're going to save all these individual parts like you see here. And then I also created another folder in there called finished items, which will eventually put the video of this project in there and the final assembly. And again, that'll make more sense once we get rolling and we start finalizing things. Okay, but we do need to have a single folder created in your H drive in the engineering folder for this toy assembly for the parts, so we can save them all in there. Okay, so once you have that folder created, you're going to go into Schoology, like I showed you earlier, locate this folder with the toy assembly parts in there, and all you're going to do, you're going to select on a specific part. So this arm socket head cap screw, I'll select that. It's going to open up, so I left clicked on it, opens it up, and then I'm going to right click on this part, and you're going to save link as, and you're going to save it into your toy assembly parts folder that you created on your student drive. And you should just be able to save it as the name that it provides. It's going to save it as an Inventor part, and you click on save. All right, so this is a little time consuming because there is, I don't know, 10 parts or so on here, 10, 11 parts, something like that. So again, to go through it, you just left click on the next part, then you right click on it, you go save link as, you save it into your folder that you created in your H drive just for these parts, and you just populate all of them in there. Okay? Alright, so that's the first step. Alright? The next step, once you have that done, so you might want to pause the video right now and get that all done, and then I'll show you the next step. But the next step then is you're going to open up Autodesk Inventor. So let me show you where Inventor's at. You should have a desktop icon of Inventor right here, Autodesk Inventor. Autodesk Inventor Professional 2014. That's the one that you want, so make sure you open up that application. And I already have that one open. And you're going to get a screen like this. So a couple things here just to kind of go over the layout of Autodesk Inventor. Within Inventor, we have what's called a graphic window, which is this big window here. we have something called a browser, and all this stuff's empty right now, but we're eventually going to populate it with some things. All right, we have different tabs through here, and within each tab we have what's called a panel. So this is like the launch panel, new features, videos, tutorials. So there's all these different panels within the tab itself. To get started though with this particular project, I'm going to have you click on the application icon, which is the big I in the upper left hand corner, and I want you to go down to the arrow next to new, and you're going to get a drop down window. It has all these different file types. So remember, with this particular project, we're kind of working backwards. Typically within Inventor, and later on in the course, you guys are going to create what's called a part file. You're actually going to create all these at some point in time, but usually you start with a part file, then you can create a drawing or an assembly of them and then do a presentation. We're just going to work with assembly right now, just to kind of get your feet wet with learning the software a little bit with some pre-made parts that you've already just downloaded. All right, so you're going to click on assembly right now, and once we're in assembly, you're going to see that your browser is opened up. Again, you should have this. If this ever disappears on you, all you have to do is click on View, User Interface, and just make sure that the browser is checked off. All right, so you definitely want that on. All right. As of now, we're in the Assemble tab. So what we're going to do is we're going to place these views, these different parts within an assembly. So I want you to left click on the Place button, and you're going to go to where your parts are located. So you might just have to do a search in your H drive and in your engineering folder and locate that toy assembly parts folder that you created. And the first one that we're going to place in there is what's called the base plate. All right, so that's the initial part. So select the base plate and click on Open. And then you're just going to left click. I'm going to drop the base plate in, and it places that in. You can see if you just press Escape then. So once you left click and drop it in, just press Escape. And now we have that base plate in there. But you can see now that it populated in my browser window. Okay. The next part I'm going to place in here are the corner guides. So again, I go over to Place. And actually, before I show you that, if you have something else other than Place, you might have one of these items in here, like Place from Content Center, things like that. Just select the drop down arrow and make sure that you just have the Place icon. Alright, so the next thing we're going to put in here is the corner guide blocks. So we're going to have 4 of these. So I'm just going to left click and drop 4 of these guide blocks in here, and then press Escape on my keyboard. Alright, and so now I have these guides, but I want to now attach these guide blocks to my base plate. So we're going to do what's called a constrain. We're going to constrain these, and you can see that they have now populated in our browser window as well. And if I just drag my cursor over the content here in the browser window, it highlights a particular part. So that's how you know which one you're currently working on. All right, so this first part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to constrain that. So I click on the constrain option here, and I'm going to do some of the constraints that we're going to work with. The 2 major ones is what's called a mate and a flush constraint. So when I mate, I'm going to click on mate, and essentially all I'm going to do is I'm going to tie these 2 parts together. I'm going to mate them together. So I'm going to click on the top of the base plate, and if I press Shift, center mouse button, you're going to get what's called an orbit tool, and I can orbit that around, and I will click on the bottom of the corner block 1, and it mates those 2 together, and I'll apply that then. So I'm going to apply that to it. Then after that, I'm going to again Shift center mouse button, I'm going to orbit this around, and I want this flat surface here, this surface, to be flush with this surface here. Alright, so with this one, I'm going to do a flush, so the end here to here, and you see how the cutout is facing in? I want to make sure that the cutout is facing in because there's going to be a block that slides in that groove later on. So I'll apply that, and I'm also going to do a flush constrain to the opposite side. Okay. So this is now constrained. So watch what happens. If I try to move this, they're stuck together. Now, as of now, this all moves. It's one big piece. And I'm actually going to constrain or ground, what's called grounding the base plate. So let me show you how to ground that so it doesn't move like it is right now. So everything's kind of anchored. So let me show you how to do that. If you just right click on base plate and go down to grounded, right now there's no check mark by it. But if I click the check mark, see how it puts a little, like a pin in there, thumbtack. And now if I try to move this, it doesn't move. The only thing that moves are these other pieces that I did not constrain to this yet. So I will continue to do that. I'm going to click on constrain again. I'm going to use the make constraint. Again, I'm just going to work with this piece here. So I'll click on the bottom, click on the top of that, apply that. Notice how the groove's on the outside now. Again, I want this on the inside. So let me show you a trick. If I just visually, I can kind of manipulate this. I free manipulate it. If I right click on that, if I right click on the part and go to free rotate, watch how I can rotate this part around. Now it's not constraining it, it's just putting it in a position where it's a little easier to put my constraints on it visually. Alright, so even though it's kind of in the piece right now, don't worry about that. I can go back into my constraint. I can click on flush now, and I want those two sides flush. I'll apply that. And those two sides flush. And again, the key is to make sure that these grooves, these notches, everything's facing towards the center. Okay, and the flat sides are on the ends. Alright, so you want to do that with these other two pieces. I'm going to put the video on pause. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll get back recording then after. Alright guys, so hopefully you have all the four corner blocks in there. You can see how the grooves are all facing towards the center, flat sides are facing the outside here. And we're basically going to start putting some pins in here and the bolts to tie these parts together and to aesthetically make them look cleaner as well with this toy assembly here. So what we're going to do is click on place, and the base pin, we're going to open up that. So I'm just going to click on open with that one, and I'm going to place two pins kind of near each block. And a couple things when you're working with your mouse, your center mouse button, you can zoom in and out the window with that. If I click and hold on the center mouse button, I can do what's called a pan tool. Or again, just to review the orbit tool, it's shift on your keyboard, center mouse button, and I can orbit it around to get a different view. You can also do some of those things from your cube here, your view cube, which is over here on the top. I got a home view here. You can see a front view, right side view. There's different things that you can do, as well as orbit. I just like using the keyboard shortcuts with that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the constraint. I'm going to do what's called an insert constraint. And I'm going to show you how we do these pins here. So I'm going to do an insert constraint. I'm going to select the top edge of the pin. Then I'm going to select the top edge of the circle that I want it to go in. And then I'm going to select a line. I want to align those together. And I'll apply that. So again, it's insert, top edge, and this make sure that it is aligned and apply that. Alright, so again, I'm going to put this on pause. Actually, we're going to go to video segment 2 after this, and I'll have all these pins placed in, and I'll show you how to put the bolts in. So Once you get all the pins in, just watch part 2 of the series.